What happened when an undercover CEO decided to step into the shoes of his employees to uncover the truth? Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. Today we're bringing you a powerful story of leadership, betrayal, and redemption. When Derek Hale, the CEO of a prestigious museum chain, goes undercover at his flagship location, he discovers a toxic work environment fueled by arrogance and elitism. But through his journey, he finds a hidden gem, an employee dedicated to inclusivity and passion. What Derek does next will surprise you and inspire real change. Stay tuned, you won't want to miss this one. Derek Hale, the CEO of a prestigious museum chain known for preserving art, history, and culture through carefully curated exhibitions, sat in his office reviewing a series of troubling reports. The City View Museum, his flagship location renowned for its elegant architecture and world-class exhibits, had been receiving an increasing number of complaints. Visitors criticized the staff's condescending behavior, lack of attention to guests deemed unimportant, and an overall cold atmosphere that contradicted the museum's core mission of inclusivity and education. Even more concerning were the reports of Claudia, the museum's director, mistreating employees and fostering a hostile work environment. Derek had expanded the museum chain over the past decade, growing it from a single beloved institution into a network of cultural landmarks. But as the business flourished, he had stepped away from daily operations, trusting his directors to uphold the standards and values he cherished. Now, reading through the mounting grievances, Derek couldn't help but feel he had failed to stay connected to what truly mattered. Reports from department heads and visitor surveys weren't enough. He needed to see things for himself. Frustration and determination mixed in his mind as he made a bold decision: to go undercover. Shedding his CEO persona, Derek would take on the role of a new intern named Daniel, blending into the day-to-day life of the museum to observe the true nature of the problem. With scruffy hair, simple clothing, and round glasses to mask his appearance, he looked nothing like the polished executive who led board meetings. Derek knew that if he wanted to understand the full extent of the issues plaguing the City View Museum, he would have to experience them firsthand. The next morning, his plan would begin. Derek Hale arrived at City View Museum the following morning, his carefully crafted disguise in place. His typically sharp appearance was swapped for a more modest look. Scruffy hair, plain clothes, and round glasses that obscured his eyes. Introducing himself as Daniel, the new intern, he approached the front desk, where the receptionist barely glanced at him before calling for Claudia. The museum director emerged from her office, her sharp features framed by perfectly styled hair and her expression one of impatient disinterest. "This is the new intern, Daniel," the receptionist informed her, the words sounding more like a chore than an introduction. Claudia's gaze swept over him with evident disdain, her lips pressed into a thin line. "Fine," she said briskly, waving her hand dismissively. "Emily, show him around. I have more important matters to handle." Without waiting for a response, Claudia turned and strode away, her heels clicking against the marble floor with the precision of someone accustomed to command. Derek felt his irritation rise but kept his expression neutral, knowing that revealing himself now would accomplish nothing. Moments later, a young woman with warm eyes and a friendly smile approached him. "Hi, I'm Emily Carter," she introduced herself, her enthusiasm genuine. "I'm one of the tour guides here. Looks like you're stuck with me for orientation." Her kindness was a stark contrast to Claudia's coldness, and Derek found himself immediately drawn to her welcoming nature. As Emily guided him through the sprawling museum, explaining the intricacies of each exhibit with passion and detail, Derek noticed how the environment, despite its grandeur, felt stifled under Claudia's oppressive leadership. Even employees who greeted Emily warmly seemed wary, their eyes flickering toward Claudia's office whenever they spoke above a whisper. Derek noted Emily's dedication, her patience with visitors, her knack for storytelling, and her genuine interest in ensuring everyone left the museum with a meaningful experience. But he also noticed Claudia's influence seeping into the staff's interactions, like a shadow looming over their enthusiasm. Emily was quick to answer Derek's questions, her enthusiasm for the art and history on display shining through every explanation. Yet the more they walked, the clearer it became that Emily's dedication was not matched by those above her. Claudia's preference for catering exclusively to wealthy patrons while dismissing ordinary visitors was painfully obvious. Derek made mental notes of everything, his frustrations simmering as he continued to observe. The elegance of the museum's exhibitions clashed with the dysfunction of its leadership, and Derek knew his mission would not be easy. Still, he was determined to uncover the truth, no matter how deeply the rot had spread. Emily Carter led Derek through the grand halls of City View Museum, her enthusiasm and passion evident with every step. Unlike Claudia's curt dismissal, Emily treated Derek like a valued member of the team, explaining the museum's structure and its diverse exhibits with warmth and patience. From ancient artifacts to contemporary masterpieces, Emily's knowledge was both vast and detailed, her voice brimming with excitement as she shared the significance behind each piece. It was clear that she loved her work, not for prestige or status, but for the joy of connecting people to art and history. As they moved through the different wings of the museum, Derek watched Emily's interactions with visitors, noting how she treated each person with the same genuine kindness and respect. Whether it was an elderly couple admiring Renaissance paintings or a group of school children giggling at a whimsical sculpture, Emily made everyone feel welcomed. She had a knack for breaking down complex ideas into engaging stories, encouraging guests to ask questions and share their thoughts. Her approach was not about showcasing her own knowledge, but rather about creating an experience that resonated with each visitor. A particularly striking moment occurred when a school group arrived for a scheduled tour. The children, varying in age and attention span, were a handful to manage. Yet Emily guided them with a natural ease, capturing their interest with vivid descriptions and interactive storytelling. She encouraged them to imagine the lives of people from different historical eras, sparking curiosity and laughter among the kids. Derek observed her closely, impressed by her ability to hold their attention without resorting to rigid lectures. Her passion was infectious, and even the most restless students seemed captivated by her words. However, the harmonious atmosphere was shattered when Claudia appeared, her expression as sharp as her clipped tone. "Emily," Claudia snapped, her voice echoing through the gallery, "you're spending far too much time on these school groups. They don't pay the bills. We're here to impress patrons with real influence." The words were laced with disdain, as if Claudia considered the children a nuisance rather than future supporters of the arts. Emily's face flushed, but she managed to keep her voice steady. "They're here to learn. It's important that everyone feels welcomed here." Claudia's lips curled into a sneer. "Your idealism is charming but misguided. Focus on the guests who matter, or I'll find someone who will." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Emily humiliated and Derek seething with anger. Despite Claudia's harshness, Emily didn't let her passion waver. She continued the tour, her voice steady even if her eyes betrayed her hurt. Derek admired her resilience, recognizing that her dedication to her work went beyond just doing her job. It was about making a difference, however small, in the lives of those who visited the museum. It became increasingly clear to Derek that Emily's compassion and knowledge were the true assets of the City View Museum, while Claudia's toxic leadership threatened to undermine everything good the institution had to offer. As the day went on, Derek made a silent vow to protect Emily's integrity and ensure her efforts were finally recognized. As Derek continued his undercover internship at City View Museum, the toxic leadership under Claudia's reign became more evident with each passing day. Claudia's approach to management was rooted in elitism and arrogance, her disdain for employees and visitors alike thinly veiled by a facade of professionalism. Derek watched as Claudia reserved her cordiality exclusively for wealthy donors and high-profile guests, her charm switching on only when money or prestige was involved. Ordinary visitors were treated as inconveniences, ushered away with thinly disguised impatience if they lingered too long or asked too many questions. During daily staff meetings, Claudia's tone remained icy and condescending. Constructive feedback was met with scorn, suggestions dismissed outright if they didn't align with her rigid vision of what the museum should represent. Worse still was her treatment of the staff, particularly Emily. Claudia frequently belittled her efforts, criticizing her inclusive approach to guiding tours and her tendency to engage with visitors of all backgrounds. "Stick to the script," Claudia would bark whenever Emily attempted to make the museum experience more accessible or engaging for visitors who weren't wealthy patrons. Derek also noticed Claudia's oppressive influence extending beyond Emily. Other staff members worked under a cloud of fear and resentment, their creativity stifled by Claudia's controlling nature. Several curators whispered about ideas they had shelved simply because they feared Claudia's reaction. More troubling still was how Claudia's favoritism played out in real time. Visitors who appeared affluent were given special treatment, escorted personally by Claudia or guided to exclusive areas of the museum. Meanwhile, school groups, families, and tourists were often rushed through exhibits or outright ignored. Derek witnessed Claudia actively dismiss a family asking about a new exhibit, her voice laced with irritation as she claimed, "This isn't a playground." Her actions weren't just damaging to employee morale, but actively undermined the museum's reputation. Derek's frustration grew each time Claudia interfered with Emily's tours or scolded her for wasting time on visitors who didn't fit her ideal profile. It was painfully clear that Claudia's version of success was exclusionary, rooted in arrogance rather than true appreciation of art and history. Derek knew then that his intervention was no longer just a matter of improving visitor experiences. It was about dismantling the harmful leadership that was corroding the very soul of City View Museum. The breaking point came on a particularly busy Saturday morning when City View Museum was bustling with visitors. Families strolled through the classical art wing, school groups crowded around interactive exhibits, and tourists snapped photos of the museum's renowned architecture. Amid the chaos, Derek watched Emily handle her tour group with grace and enthusiasm, her voice clear and engaging as she described the significance of a newly unveiled sculpture. The group, comprised of college students and parents alike, hung on her every word, visibly captivated by her knowledge and passion. But as Emily guided them toward the contemporary art section, Claudia appeared, her expression stormy. Without preamble, she cut into Emily's tour, addressing her with that familiar tone of superiority. "What are you doing, wasting time with this group? They're clearly not here to make donations," Claudia sneered, her gaze sweeping over the casually dressed students with obvious disdain. Emily's cheeks flushed, but she kept her composure, explaining that her group was interested in learning about the museum's newest installations. "Learning?" Claudia scoffed. "This isn't a community center, Emily. We need results, not idle chatter." Before Emily could respond, Claudia's attention was drawn to a family with young children who had wandered too close to an installation. Marching over, she scolded them loudly, her voice dripping with irritation. "Do you realize how valuable this piece is? You can't just let your children roam wherever they want." The mother apologized profusely, her cheeks reddening as she tried to herd her children away. Derek noted the way several other visitors shot uncomfortable glances in Claudia's direction, the warmth of the museum's atmosphere rapidly deteriorating. Claudia's wrath wasn't reserved for visitors alone. Shortly after, a delivery of new artifacts arrived, and Claudia berated the museum's assistants for not handling the items quickly enough. "Do you all need spoon-fed instructions? This level of incompetence is unacceptable," she snapped, her words slicing through the air like knives. Derek's patience wore thin as he witnessed Claudia's tirade, but the moment that solidified his decision to act came when Claudia once again humiliated Emily in front of visitors. Emily had been patiently explaining the history behind a delicate porcelain piece to an elderly couple, her voice gentle and inviting. Claudia interrupted, her voice dripping with disdain. "Emily, if you spent half as much time actually doing your job as you do playing tour guide to every clueless guest that wanders in here, maybe we'd see some progress." Emily's shoulders stiffened, her eyes dropping to the floor, her voice cracking as she attempted to continue. Derek clenched his fists, his blood boiling. Enough was enough. He hadn't come undercover just to observe. It was time to confront Claudia and put an end to her destructive leadership before she could cause any more damage. The following morning, Derek walked into City View Museum with a newfound resolve. As the staff gathered for their daily meeting, Claudia stood at the front of the room, her arms crossed and her gaze icy. Derek blended into the crowd, his expression calm yet his eyes sharp, assessing every word Claudia spoke. She launched into another tirade about efficiency, her focus pointedly aimed at Emily, who stood quietly near the back. "Some of you seem to think this museum is a playground for charity cases," Claudia snapped, her gaze locking on Emily. "We cater to patrons who matter, not to those who come here to gawk and waste our time." Derek's patience had worn thin. It was time. Taking a steady breath, he stepped forward, his posture transforming from the meek intern he had pretended to be into the confident leader he truly was. "Claudia," Derek said, his voice clear and firm, cutting through the room's tension like a knife. Claudia's eyes narrowed, irritation flickering across her face. "What is it now, Daniel? This isn't the time for your petty concerns." Derek removed his glasses and straightened his shoulders, the subtle transformation startling to those who hadn't looked twice at him before. "It's Derek," he said, locking eyes with Claudia. "Derek Hale, CEO of the museum chain you supposedly manage." A stunned silence fell over the room, eyes widening and whispers rippling through the group. Claudia's face went pale, her lips parting as she struggled to find words. Emily's eyes grew round with shock, her mouth slightly agape. Derek's gaze remained steady, his authority undeniable. "For the past week, I've been observing how you run this museum," Derek continued, his tone calm but unwavering. "I've seen how you treat employees like Emily, with disrespect and condescension. I've seen how you dismiss visitors who don't fit your narrow idea of worthiness, and I've seen how your arrogance and elitism are driving this institution into the ground." Claudia's composure fractured, her hands trembling slightly as she attempted to respond. I was only doing what was necessary to maintain the museum's standards," she stammered, her voice faltering under the weight of Derek's accusation. "Standards?" Derek echoed, his eyes narrowing. "You've confused exclusivity with excellence. Alienating visitors and belittling staff isn't maintaining standards, it's poisoning them. This museum was built to celebrate art, history, and culture for everyone, not just those you deemed worthy." Emily watched the confrontation with astonishment, her eyes never leaving Derek's face. For the first time, she saw the man behind the unassuming disguise, his authority as undeniable as his passion for the museum's mission. "Your behavior has left me with two options," Derek said, his voice cutting through Claudia's spluttering attempts to defend herself. "Either you step down willingly and leave with whatever dignity you have left, or I document your actions and report them to the board. The choice is yours." The room remained deathly silent as Claudia stared at him, her face contorted with a mix of anger, fear, and disbelief. Derek held her gaze, unflinching, his message delivered with absolute clarity. Claudia's hands trembled as she stood before Derek, her authority crumbling like the statues she had neglected to appreciate beyond their monetary value. The staff remained silent, their eyes flicking nervously between Derek and Claudia, the shock of his revelation still fresh. Claudia attempted to salvage her pride, her voice strained and uneven. "You can't just waltz in here and dismantle everything I've built," she snapped, her desperation sharpening her tone. "I have dedicated years to making Cityview Museum the exclusive cultural landmark it deserves to be. You can't possibly understand the kind of clientele we attract, the kind who demand excellence." Derek's gaze remained cold, his patience worn down to a thread. "Excellence isn't built on arrogance or exclusion, Claudia. You've mistaken exclusivity for quality. The true purpose of this museum is to make art, history, and culture accessible to everyone, not just a privileged few, and your actions are undermining that mission." Claudia's defiance faltered, her bravado slowly eroding under Derek's unwavering stare. Her fingers gripped the edge of a nearby desk, her knuckles white as if holding on to the last fragments of her authority. I was only trying to maintain the standards expected of an institution like this," she sputtered, her words hollow and defensive. "By treating your own employees like expendable tools." Derek's voice rose, his frustration boiling over. "I've seen how you humiliate Emily for actually caring about visitors, how you berate staff for daring to show initiative or compassion. This museum wasn't built to stroke your ego, Claudia. It was built to share beauty and knowledge with the world." A nervous murmur rippled through the gathered employees, their expressions ranging from cautious optimism to outright disbelief. Derek's gaze shifted from Claudia to the staff, his tone gentler but no less resolute. "I've come here to understand why things have gone wrong. Now I see the problem clearly. Claudia, you've fostered a toxic environment where innovation, compassion, and dedication are punished instead of celebrated, and that stops today." Turning his attention back to Claudia, Derek delivered the ultimatum with chilling clarity. "You have two options. Option 1, you resign from your position immediately. I'll ensure you receive severance and can leave with whatever dignity you have left. Option 2, I document your actions, submit a detailed report to the board, and have you removed with cause. And if I hear even one more complaint about your behavior today, I will act on that second option without hesitation." Claudia's shoulders sagged, her defiance melting into fear and resignation. For a moment the room was deathly silent, the weight of Derek's words settling heavily over everyone. Claudia's voice emerged, brittle and trembling. I'll step down. Derek nodded, his expression unreadable. Gather your things. I want your resignation letter on my desk by the end of the day. Without waiting for a response, Derek turned his attention to the rest of the staff, ready to begin the process of rebuilding what Claudia had so recklessly damaged. With Claudia's resignation formalized and her presence finally gone from City View Museum, Derek wasted no time in addressing the staff. After ensuring the employees that positive changes were coming, he pulled Emily aside for a private conversation. They stepped into a quiet room overlooking the museum's sprawling sculpture garden, sunlight filtering through the tall windows. Emily's posture was tense, her gaze wary as if bracing for bad news, but Derek's expression was calm, his voice measured and sincere. "Emily, I owe you an apology," he began, "for letting Claudia's toxicity go unchecked for so long. I should have been more involved, should have listened sooner." Emily shook her head, her voice soft but firm. "You trusted the people you put in charge. That's not a crime." Derek's lips twitched into a faint smile, appreciating her kindness even after all she had endured. "Your dedication to this museum is exactly what it needs. You care about the visitors, you engage with them, you make them feel valued. And that's what makes this place special." He took a breath, his next words spoken with conviction. "I'd like to offer you the position of assistant director. You'll have authority over tours, exhibitions, and visitor engagement, everything Claudia failed to nurture." Emily's eyes widened, her hand instinctively covering her mouth. I don't know what to say," she stammered. Derek smiled, his expression warmer than she'd ever seen. "Say yes, because you've more than earned it." After a moment's hesitation, Emily nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "Yes, absolutely yes." The promotion marked not only a professional advancement, but a triumph of integrity over arrogance. Derek knew he had made the right decision and that City View Museum was finally on the path to healing. With Claudia gone and Emily promoted to assistant director, Derek wasted no time in setting a new tone for City View Museum. He called a meeting with all the staff, determined to rebuild their confidence and commitment. Standing at the front of the spacious sunlit atrium, Derek spoke with conviction. Effective immediately, this museum will prioritize inclusivity, respect, and creativity. Every visitor matters, and so does every one of you. The employees exchange glances, a mix of surprise and relief evident on their faces. Derek outlined his vision for the museum, empowering staff to make decisions, improving visitor engagement, and fostering an environment where creativity could thrive without fear of reprimand. He emphasized that Emily, in her new role, would have the authority to implement changes designed to enhance both the guest experience and employee satisfaction. "I want each of you to feel valued and heard," Derek continued. "From now on, this museum will be a place where your contributions are recognized, not stifled." Emily stood beside him, her posture more confident than ever as she prepared to help guide the transformation. The staff's reactions ranged from cautious optimism to outright enthusiasm, but the overall mood was hopeful. Derek made it clear that his involvement would be ongoing. He would not disappear into corporate headquarters and leave them to fend for themselves. Instead, he pledged regular visits, open communication, and a commitment to continual improvement. As the meeting concluded, Derek watched the employees disperse with renewed energy, their shoulders a little less tense, their expressions a little brighter. The change had begun, and he was determined to see it through. Weeks later, City View Museum was nearly unrecognizable, not in its elegant structure or stunning exhibitions, but in the atmosphere that now filled its halls. Derek walked through the museum during a busy afternoon, his steps unhurried as he observed the changes Emily had implemented since her promotion to assistant director. The tension that once stifled the staff was gone, replaced by an air of collaboration and enthusiasm. Employees greeted visitors warmly, engaged with school groups and casual tourists alike, and contributed ideas for new exhibits without fear of judgment. Emily thrived in her new role, her natural leadership guiding the team toward a more inclusive and welcoming environment. She had streamlined operations, encouraged creative initiatives, and introduced interactive tours that drew more diverse audiences than ever before. As Derek passed through the contemporary art wing, he noticed Emily expertly guiding a family through the exhibit, her voice lively and engaging. The guests listened intently, their curiosity met with genuine enthusiasm and kindness. Derek's chest swelled with pride. knowing he had made the right decision. Later, as he met with Emily in her newly renovated office, she shared updates about upcoming projects and visitor feedback, her eyes alight with excitement. "We're seeing more families, more school groups, even people who never thought they'd feel welcome here," Emily said with a smile. Derek nodded, his own smile reflecting her satisfaction. "You've done incredible work, Emily. This is exactly the museum I hoped it could be." As Derek left the museum that day, the sun setting over the sprawling city, he knew the transformation wasn't complete, but it was well underway, and with Emily at the helm, he was confident that City View Museum would continue to thrive, guided by compassion, creativity, and true leadership. The story of City View Museum teaches a powerful lesson about leadership, integrity, and the importance of inclusivity. Derek Hale's decision to go undercover highlights how true leadership involves understanding and addressing problems from the ground up, rather than relying solely on reports from those in power. Claudia's downfall illustrates the dangers of arrogance, elitism, and neglecting the core mission of an institution. Her obsession with catering only to wealthy patrons undermined the museum's purpose and created a toxic work environment that stifled creativity and enthusiasm. Conversely, Emily's kindness, dedication, and respect for all visitors demonstrate that success is built on genuine connection and passion, not exclusivity. By promoting Emily and empowering the staff to embrace inclusivity and creativity, Derek proves that positive change starts with empathy and genuine care. The museum's transformation shows that great leadership isn't about enforcing rigid standards, but nurturing an environment where everyone feels valued and inspired. Derek's journey emphasizes the importance of listening, adapting, and actively engaging with those on the front lines. Ultimately, the story underscores that a true leader's strength lies in their ability to uplift others, fostering growth and excellence through compassion and integrity.